Welcome. I am very excited to call to order this annual meeting. I've had lots of exciting annual meetings in my life, but none that have begun the way this one is about to begin. A special gift for all of you as we begin. Without further ado, please help me welcome the Gargoyles. And what better way to begin a meeting than sacred text from the most holy Neil Diamond? Go Sox. No? Okay. I'd like to call our meeting to order and begin with prayer. The Lord be with you. Let us pray. Almighty and ever-living God, source of all wisdom and understanding, be present with us who take counsel for the renewal of the mission of your church. Teach us in all things to seek first your honor and glory. Guide us to perceive what is right, and grant us both the courage to pursue it and the grace to accomplish it, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for being out on a snowy morning and staying after worship to have our annual meeting today. I'd like to open our meeting by appointing a clerk for this meeting. Marilyn Machowski is the clerk for the vestry and has most graciously offered her service to the Lord Jesus and to all of us by taking the minutes, so I'm officially appointing her as clerk for this morning's meeting. You have in your packet, you all have your packet? Yes. You have in your packets the minutes from our meeting, which took place in September. So if it feels like we've just done this, we kind of have. We did have an annual meeting in September to catch us back up after having to abstain from gathering for meetings for quite some time due to the pandemic. But I would like to call your attention to the annual meeting minutes, which can be found on page 4 of your report.
Madam President, I'll move we suspend the reading of the minutes and have you vote to accept them as submitted by the clerk.
We have a motion to suspend the reading of the minutes. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. The minutes are accepted. I now invite our wardens who will present to you the report of the nominating committee on behalf of the nominating committee.
The nominating committee has put together the following slate for leadership positions at Grace Church. Starting with the vestry, we have 3-year terms, class of 2025. And we've got 4 seats: Chris Hauk, Marilyn Muselski, Ed Nunn, and Andy Yost. And then we have a 1-year unexpired term, so that's class of 2023. And that's Mark Sacker. And then for our diocesan convention deputies, 1-year class of 2023 term, the guards, John and Allison. And as an alternate, Mike Castile. And those are the leadership positions put forth by the nominating committee.
And also on behalf of the nominating committee, I nominate Chris Wild in the class of 2024 for his second 2-year term as warden.
Thank you. Having been I should put my sound back on. The names having been submitted by the nominating committee, they stand before you as the slate for this year's elections.
Madam President, I move that we close nominations from the floor and further move that we elect the slate unanimously as submitted by the nominating committee.
Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, and welcome to the vestry and to the wonderful and sacred honor of going to diocesan convention. Thank you very much. Thank you for all of you for your willingness to serve our parish. We're very grateful. Vestry service is a joy, and it's work, and it's more work than most people realize. The members of the vestry are constantly in communication with me and with one another and with the staff to ensure that all of the activities of our common life move forward. Serving on a vestry is always a labor of love. It is most especially a labor of love during a time of global pandemic when the church as a community had to rethink literally every aspect of our life together. She has greatly earned stepping off the vestry and having completed an amazing and remarkable term of service. Barbara Hughes has led us in incredible ways for the past several years. Most notably, she is the voice of outreach among us at every meeting, constantly holding before us the needs of our neighbors. She has personally rallied the troops and has gathered food and has furthered partnerships in our community. I don't know what these last few years would have been like without her. Barbara is stepping off vestry, but she has my thanks. She has the thanks of the wardens, and would you please share your thanks with her? My report is in the copy of your booklet, but I will give some highlights to you. Once again, it can't be overstated what a profound honor it is for me to serve you as your rector. During lockdown, we celebrated our 2-year anniversary together, And then a couple weeks ago, we celebrated our 3-year anniversary together. And it's been a wild 3 years, but I wouldn't trade them for anything. So I'm very humbled and excited and filled with joy to continue to serve among you. The past several years, you don't need me to tell you, have been challenging, but also times of deep blessing for us. There's a lot that we could say about what happened in the past 2 years, but I want to call your attention to the things that I will probably be reflecting on for the rest of my career with gratitude. We invested in technology, as you know, because we had to, and in the past several months, we've even deepened our use of technology. I'm incredibly proud of and thankful for the staff members, most notably Mike Castile, who learned an entire new way of doing his job and of serving our community so that we could continue to have our live stream. We've also strengthened our community relationships in this pandemic. All faith communities were challenged, and the faith communities of Madison were no different. And it was inspiring to get to know our neighbors of other faith communities in this time. So we've strengthened our relationship and our partnership, most notably with our friends at the First Baptist Church in Madison. They run the food pantry, and we are honored that we get to participate in that. The other churches of the community, the schools of the community support them. It's a worthy and remarkable program that is held in their parish hall. And I want to again thank Barbara Hughes for making sure that we are a part of that important initiative. In particular, our part is that because of our investment in that community, our sort of part to play for that particular project is that with our funding, fresh food is all made available every single week for the guests of that food pantry. So we've taken that on, and we will continue to take that on because that's important to us. I was graciously invited to serve as the chaplain to the Madison Police Department several months ago. And I want you to know that that has strengthened my understanding of our place in the community, and it has brought Grace Church into some different and unusual places, and it has been a joy for me to meet the many people who serve our community in law enforcement. I've learned a lot from those who are professional law enforcement people who are members among us, and I've learned a lot from the people who serve here in Madison, and that has just begun for me, but it's been a time of real joy. And everywhere I go, I drop your name. I always tell them that I'm coming on behalf of you, and that you all are the ones who are grateful and are praying for them and their work. This year we focused on stewardship in new ways. We had a heightened clarity about how we were going to communicate our needs to the people of our community, to the many generous people who love us and support us and want to know how they can help us. You'll hear more detail about stewardship in the report, but when I think of this past year, I think of stewardship as a highlight because it was a time of real growth for all of us as we learned more and deepened our commitment to stewardship. New members have blessed us in ways too many to number. I honestly get teary when I think about it. When I am at clergy meetings with other people, not even diocesan people, any other clergy around the country, I hear lamentations that nobody new comes to church anymore. Nobody, they tell me, nobody. And what I want to say is, really? That simply has not been our experience. And this is by God's grace that God is sending us people, but meeting new people and welcoming them into our community has been an incredible joy for all of us in the community. That's not just my joy, but that is our shared joy. And I want to hold it for us this morning as an opportunity for Thanksgiving. Our choirs and Sunday school and adult Christian formation and fellowship activities, they've all continued in the pandemic. They certainly did take on different forms at different times, but none of them ever stopped. We never stopped worshiping. We never stopped learning new things. We never stopped nurturing children in our faith. And we're continuing to do that now. And the blessing that we are receiving is that for all of those months and over a year that we had to live in that peculiar way, of mostly leaning on technology and not being able to be in person much, they have actually grown fruits. When you see the children who have come to us, they have actually developed in their faith. They have learned. Dr. Ann teaches children new music on Zoom. I would never have imagined such a thing was possible, but she makes it happen. And we welcomed Miss Catherine to our staff this year. Catherine McManus is an incredibly talented young woman, and she's a daughter of this parish. So you should all be incredibly proud because you raised her up. And when I see her with children, I am blown away by her enthusiasm, her creativity, and her passion. On your way out, you should peek in Nyman Hall. She constantly is looking to make the space around her more creative and more life-giving for children. And she was there all week long, lugging things around and making it look as welcoming as possible. So when you see her, please thank her. The rest of the staff, Ash Kabal makes sure that our finances are in order, and Susie Harris has had to pivot again and again and again, meeting our constant communication challenges, making sure that in this time where we're in semi-separation still for a lot of the time, that the needs of our community and the wonderful things that are happening in our community are communicated to the wider world. We know it's not perfect, and it's for us a constant learning curve of what is going to work and what is going to be most effective in our communications, but we couldn't do any of it without Susie Harris. So my desire for all of you is if you interact with any of these people in the coming days and weeks, please tell them how thankful we are for them. Since our last annual meeting, we've tried and explored different ways of marking occasions. St. Francis Day was outside with dogs, and I don't know if any of you came, but it was really, really fun. And what was most fun about that day is that was the first day since the pandemic began that the children sang together in person with all of us. So throw that and some adorable puppies, and the rector was a sobbing mess. It was just beautiful. We also celebrated the Feast of St. Nicholas in a different fashion, having a very family-friendly vigil mass to welcome St. Nicholas. Again, the children sang for us, and we had a wonderful reception out on our patio. Father Asa and I, before the pandemic, you may recall, had perfected a cocktail that we called the Advent Spectacular. And we were very proud to bring the Advent Spectacular back, and it was, as you would imagine, spectacular. Father Asa came to us right when he was on the cusp of being ordained to the priesthood, and spent most of his first year as a priest in front of a camera alone in his house. And that could do one of many things to a brand new priest, but what it has done for our talented Father Asa, it has deepened his sense of longing for his vocation and his passion for all of you. He is a wonderful preacher, pastoral caregiver, and teacher, and I could not have survived the past 2 years without him. So thank you, Father Asa. Thank you, thank you. Under the direction of our bishop, the clergy of the diocese are much more intentional about our own relationships with one another. As I mentioned in worship today, we are part of a network. Our network is called the Evelyn Underhill Regional Ministry Network. We're partnered with Chatham, with Short Hills. They have a really good organist. I don't know if you know that. And with Maplewood. Who else?
St. Stephen's.
Milburn. St. Stephen's Milburn. And Calvary Summit. So the clergy, we all meet together monthly at least, and the lay leaders have started to meet together as well. And it's Bishop Hughes' desire that what the pandemic will have brought all of us is a renewed sense of our shared ministry with our sibling Episcopalians here in this part of New Jersey. So we were able to mark the days of Advent together. You received your daily devotional. That was, if you clicked on them, you heard voices from all over our region. It wasn't just us here at Grace Church. So it was such a blessing to be able to pray through the days of Advent with our friends in other churches, and the clergy and lay leaders are working right now to have a similar shared observance of Lent. You'll be seeing how we're going to do that. But what it means is it means that things are richer for all of us. It means that all of us are learning from one another and praying for one another. When the floods happened in the fall, it meant that the churches who were hit hardest by floods were immediately able to call the other churches of our region, and their worship needs were met, and any other building questions they had, we were able to partner together. And I know that seems like a no-brainer, but I gather that that is kind of new in the culture of the diocese here. So that's been exciting to be a part of. Worship and pastoral care have continued with holy intention, and we have adapted as needed to abide by diocesan policies. I am asked all the time if I think we'll ever have to go back to not worshiping in person again. And I'm going to say it even knowing I'm on camera and this could come back to haunt me. The answer is no, I don't think we will. I think that the bishop has given us every indication that she is comfortable with the leadership's taking seriously the protocols that we have been given and adapting them for our personal use so that we can continue to gather, making sure that those who should not be in person with us for their own medical reasons will always have access to all aspects of our worshiping life, but making sure that those of us who are able to be together in person are able to do that as well. So I feel incredible gratitude and hopefulness for the future. Looking ahead, it's very hard to know what our life will be like on the other side of this pandemic. And that, I'm not just saying that as someone who does church things for a living. I think if you ask any industry, teachers are wrestling with this question. The insurance world is wrestling with this question. The legal world is wrestling with this question. What will our life be like after living like this for 2 years, and the ways that this pandemic has changed us in 2 years? And the answer is we really don't know yet, but that's not a bad thing. It's an opportunity for us to think very carefully and prayerfully and deeply about what God is calling us and inviting us to do in the months and years to come for us. The wardens and the vestry and I speak about this all the time, is what will the future be like for us? And we're not here to show you 16 slides of what we think it is, because we still don't know. But what we are here to tell you is that in this new year, as the new vestry has begun, as the new configuration of the vestry, we are committed to looking at 3 areas of our common life with focus. We want to take a renewed look at the care of our community, how we care for one another, how we care for our newer members and integrate them into our life together, and how we are mindful of one another. The pandemic brought incredible challenge for us because it was hard to know how anyone was doing or where anyone was. And it was imperfect. And the things that would keep me up at night were the worrisome thoughts that I would have that we're losing someone, or we're forgetting someone, or someone is suffering and we're not there for them. That is a passion of mine and a shared passion of all of ours. And so I assure you that we're revisiting how we do that and how we take on that holy work in light of the pandemic. We're also looking at our public Christian witness in light of the pandemic. We learned a lot about outreach. We learned a lot about the salutary nature of partnering with other people who also love Jesus and also want to take care of all his friends. So we're going to be focusing on how we take what we have learned in the past 2 years and the relationships we have built in the last 2 years, and where God is calling us to leverage them in the future. We're also going to take a look at these wonderful, remarkable properties that are in our care. The people who came before us went to a lot of trouble to make sure that we would have a roof over our heads for days like this one. And it is our responsibility with every generation to see what is in our care. Are we using it most effectively? are we best caring for the things that have been left to us? You may recall that in the earliest days of the pandemic, the wardens announced to you that there was a potential sale of Hayes House. That's the property that's right next door. A builder approached us at the, sort of out of the blue early in the pandemic, wanting to buy the property from Grace Church. The vestry went into discernment about it, took several weeks and months to talk about it, and proceeded with conversation with this builder who was going to buy the property from us. The conversations fell apart, and it was because these things happen in the real estate world. So if you were wondering how that ended, it ended with nothing. It ended with a respectful decision that we were not going to, that particular sale and that particular agreement was not completed. This has left us with the unique question of what is God calling us to do with our properties? We have tenants in the Surrey Lane House, which has traditionally been owned for clergy housing, and we have a tenant now, a nonprofit mental health care agency in Hayes House right now. We do have 2 schools downstairs. All of our tenants, for different reasons, were hit hard in the pandemic. You don't need me to tell you that. Everyone was hit hard in the pandemic. So we're renewing our relationships with all of these partnerships and praying carefully about what God might have us do with all of the buildings in our care. In the coming year, we're going to have to rely on one another and have generosity of spirit when things don't go well. We're going to try new things, and some of them will be amazing. Hopefully most of them will be amazing. And some of them may be less than amazing. And that's okay, because that is how we learn and grow. One thing that I'm really sure is going to be amazing, and that will be happening in April, is our long overdue hallway renovation. Our hallway is fabulous, and it is showing its age. It is sort of the artery. See, that's the nurse word. It's how we get through to all of the places on our campus. And under the direction of Judy Jurgensen and the Buildings and Grounds team, that's going to get a beautiful renovation this April. We would have liked it to happen before this April, but it will be a shock to no one in this room that we were plagued by supply chain challenges. So the new hallway is coming, and I'm excited about that because it will give us a better way of welcoming our new members who have joined us during the pandemic, and now they will have an easier time finding their way around the building, and all of us will have an easier time using our space. It will be brighter and more user-friendly. So those are all of the wonderful things that, those are some of the many wonderful things that are coming up for all of us. I feel very hopeful and joyful when I think about the future. I don't feel discouraged. I feel a sense of wonder, even at the parts of the future that are very unclear to me right now. I feel a sense of wonder because you are the steadfast people who for 2 years have lived so bravely and so passionately and with such love and with such welcome and with such hospitality. And God has been with us for every moment. So I see every reason to feel joy about embracing and welcoming whatever comes next. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. No. Yes. Yep, there we are. Great. Thank you. Let's go to the next slide if we could. No, there we are. Let's go here. This slide is not in the annual report booklet, and that's just as well because there are two mistakes in the numbers. I've been doing this for 10 years and it's just consistent. Usually I find the mistake at 6:30 in the morning of the Sunday of the presentation, and that pattern has continued. I'm not going to highlight it yet because it's not all that important. Fortunately, the numbers that are in the booklet, which are not, which are this in combination with some other material that John will be presenting, there's only one small error, and it's of no great consequence. This is our usual format for the financial results for the preceding years, or in this case, 2021. The budget as developed, last year at this time is on the left, the actual numbers on the right, and to vary our usual pattern, instead of starting with the bottom line, I'm going to start with the third from the bottom line, which is right here. And I'll do this as will become clear, because this particular line highlights things that we as a parish, we as a vestry and support staff consider ourselves responsible for. This year, among other sort of strange things, we have a line here called non-recurring income. What is that? Non-recurring income was something, my guess is that no one in this room remembers the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program, I think is what that stands for, which was instituted in the spring of 2020 when the prospects under the pandemic were probably worst. And basically the federal government, on behalf of our grandchildren and their children, made us a loan of 2.5 months of payroll, which in our case was just over $100,000. So we've got, that loan was forgiven in 2021, and the accountants tell me that then gets reported as non-recurring income to the tune of about $103,000. As a result, what we thought at the time of the budget was going to be a loss of $132,000, that hasn't changed. The actual result was a loss of $29,000, and when you add the 103 to that, we end up with a true bottom line, at least in terms of what will go into our record books, was a positive $74,000. What I'd like to focus on this morning, however, is the things that I feel responsible for, and I think most of the vestry would as well, is the line above that. And just quickly here at the top, as usual, we've got the income items, below that the expense items, and the question to explain is how we went from a projected budget deficit of $132,000 to a number before recurrent income of a loss of $29,000. So a difference of basically $100,000. How did that come about? Part of it was due to pledge income, which came in marvelously higher than assumed at the time we did the budget. Fundraisers, of course, fell apart because we didn't have fundraisers with the pandemic. Other items were pretty much the same, but at the end of the day, our income was about $20,000 higher than expected. A marvelous outcome, an even more marvelous outcome is if you look at the expenses. And if you look at our total expenses there, expenses versus the budget were about $80,000 less than expected. Well, how does that happen? Well, join with me now as we go back to the beginning days of the pandemic. As recently as a year ago, no one had any idea what the costs were going to be to keep this building as clean as it needed to be for all of us together as we do. At the time, and not to go on, but I attended at least 2 Zoom meetings with the bishop. This is, all elderly treasurers like myself. Well, some of them not so elderly, but many of them. And during which we had at least a third of those meetings taken up with the technology of cleaning buildings. That's how pervasive the concern was. And the combination of not knowing what it's going to take to keep these buildings clean, not knowing how much they were going to be used, we ended up with a huge delta, fortunately in our favor, and at the end of the day, that's how basically we reduced our spending on overall expenses by about $80,000. And it's extraordinary outcome, and John will explain in a few minutes as to how we deal with that in 2022. If I could move to the next slide, please. I think the past 10 years have been putting together pie charts, and you have to agree, if you look very carefully, that they've become much more elegant every year that we do it. The message doesn't change. We're still in a situation where, pledge income is overwhelmingly important on the income side, and personnel expenses are overwhelmingly important on the expense side. The only difference this year is the numbers change a little bit on the income because we didn't have fundraisers, and hopefully we'll have fundraisers this year. So that's all I want to say about the pie charts. I mean, just enjoy them at your leisure. Let's move on quickly on the balance sheet. Last year was an extraordinary result in terms of the increase in our assets. We're now up to about $5.5 million. A combination of the market, and Bruce has discussed the market at great length in the booklet, but the combination of the market contributing to a huge increase in our endowment cash and securities. Hidden in there as well are some quiet or not so quiet gifts from parishioners, and it's a combination of the two. The market was overwhelmingly the largest. The gifts are overwhelmingly important for those of us who watch these details. A couple of other points. Cash was too high at year end. It's always too high because I'm never sure how much we're going to get in the way of prepaid pledges. I'd like to say we'd reduce that going forward, but I say that every year. The only other point I'd make, we still have our loan from Lakeland Bank. It's now, $92,000. We pay, this is a carryover from when we had the new building. We pay prime less 1%. So it's an attractive rate, but we have no need for it, and I would hope we'd be paying that down. So that's what I wanted to cover in terms of 2021, and maybe we'll move on to 2022.
Thank you, David. As Susan indicated, the only certainty for the past 2 years has been an incredible amount of uncertainty. And your finance committee and my colleagues, Andy Bolt, Ed Nunn, Bruce Rudin, Dave Gates, and the wardens spend a lot of time trying to evaluate the current state of Grace Church finances on a monthly basis. The frequent issue is, when are we getting back to normal? And as our rector has indicated, it's not entirely clear what normal is going to be and when that's going to happen. But we spend a lot of time trying to evaluate where we are and where we think we need to go. We are, in this respect, not unlike every other church in the diocese. I would say to you, knowing something about the finances of some of our other churches in the diocese, we are actually doing better overall than some of our colleagues are. So you have up in front of you here the 2021 budget, the 2021 actual, and the 2022 budget, which your vestry has been working with. You will see that, and if you read about it in your stewardship report, you will see that the categories are standard. Most of our money comes from pledge income, which through your generosity was more than expected last year, and we have had some very useful and generous pledge results this year in 2022. There is still pledge money coming in, so that number may change a little bit. Other church support stays about the same. Other church support is money that gets put in the plate, people who give us money who are not pledgers and the like. Fundraisers are always a solid block of our income picture. As David suggests, we didn't have any to speak of last year. It is our hope that there will be some greater fundraising activity this year, and with a little hope and prayer, we've put a $39,000 amount in the budget. Occupancy is what our tenants pay us. Some of our tenants, as Susan and David have indicated, have been hit hard by the pandemic. They seem to be coming out of that, or at least some of them are, and we are working with them about what their abilities are and what their expectations are in 2022 and on a going forward basis. The endowment transfer is, of course, the money that comes out of the endowment. As David indicated, our endowment values have gone up, largely through the activities of the market, but also through some generosity from some of our parishioners. There is an endowment policy that was adopted a number of years ago, which explains how much money we take out of that endowment on an annual basis. And that is very well managed and well measured. So that is going to go up a little bit in 2022. All of that suggests that with our best guess and estimate right now, we are looking at a total income of $812,000. As I have said for a long time, the problem is that our expenses are also going up. Our expenses are largely fixed in terms of their scope. We expect that as we move out of this pandemic, some of our expenses that we were able to save on last year will increase this year, hopefully as a result of use of the building and the like. Personnel, as you all know, are the costs of our staff, not only salaries but benefits, pension, and the like. B&G operations are the day-to-day costs associated with maintaining our buildings, light, heat, insurance, snow plowing, which hopefully we won't have much to do this year with, and other things associated with the maintenance and operation of our physical plant. As some of you know, capital expenditures related to our physical plant come from another source. The hallway project that Susan was referring to is not funded as part of the $129,000. That comes from a different set of monies. Our diocesan share is the money that we give to as part of our contribution to the work of the diocese. The vestry voted, as did many churches in last year and this year, to reduce that number to 11%, as I recall, and 11% of net income, which is a calculation that is somewhat complicated, that does not include all of the 812, but a good chunk of it. For those of you who are interested in these things, I will tell you that many churches in the diocese have reduced their diocesan share. The diocese knows that. At $83,000 with a budget, we are still probably among the top 5, as we have been for a number of years. But that is just a reality of of income. It's a reality of the times that we are in. Office expenses, you can see, have changed dramatically since our projected budget of last year. Outreach committee gifts, that is money that comes in, that is part of our operating budget. It does not include money that some of you give for specific outreach activities. That is accounted for in a different way. The $34,000 is money that actually comes out of our operating budget, is out of our income. InReach is funding for what we do to support and take care of ourselves, coffee hours, vestry retreats, things of that nature. And it is our hope and our expectation that that will increase in 2022, because hopefully we will be gathering more frequently and using the building more frequently, and having greater opportunities for fellowship, not only amongst our congregation, but also for the outside world. So all of that comes together with a total projected budget of $871,000 in expenses. It does not take a financial wizard or a mathematician to see that that leaves us with a projected $60,000 deficit. That is better than the projected deficit for 2021, but it is a source of concern to your finance committee and your vestry. And there is, prior to the pandemic, there were discussions about how we would deal with that, because that seems to be a reoccurring theme. And I'm sure that once we get a better handle on what is actually going to happen this year in terms of reopening and income and the like, that we will be revisiting that number as we do on a regular basis. So that is the projected budget for 2022 that the vestry is working with. My understanding is that we may have, in the past couple of days, received additional pledge money that will increase that number. So that's all to the good, and that is reflective of the generosity of our congregation, which is a thing to be praised. So that is the 2022 budget. I don't know if I have a David Gates pie chart. What would we do without David Gates pie charts? For those of you who like visual, this is a pie chart of the numbers that we were just talking about. As you can see, our largest source of income is pledges. That is a good thing. That is indicative of a healthy congregation, a congregation whose people pledge money and give money to the work of the church, not only here, but also in a more broad perspective. Would we like that number to be bigger? Sure we would, but that is a very healthy number from our congregation. And you can see it follows with the endowment transfer, which we are very lucky to have. Many churches do not. Occupancy, which is I shouldn't use the word rent, it is the contributions that are given to us by our tenants. Other church support, which is everything that's not part of that, and fundraisers. Flipping over to the expense side, oh, okay, well, there we go, that's all right. Flipping over to the expense side, our largest single expense is personnel. Personnel costs keep rising, insurance costs keep rising, and the like. And so funding that and funding the regular ongoing operations of our buildings are the two biggest elements of our expense picture, followed by the share of the office expenses and some of the other items that I spoke about when the numbers were actually up there. So that is a visual of what our 2022 budget looks like. Next, endowment status. Bruce, are you doing this? Okay, now.
John, may I ask a question while Bruce is going up?
I can't hear you, Eleanor, I'm sorry.
While Bruce is walking up, I think my brain glitched for a minute when Dave was speaking. What is the vestry's intent with this $91,000 outstanding mortgage on the place coalition?
I think, well, do one of you want to take that, or do you want me to say something? I didn't hear the question. The 91,000 outstanding loan. This
this on? Can you hear me? Yep. Good morning. Oh, it is? Yes. Well, we had another good year, obviously. I don't want to project what's going to happen next year because we're really in the throes of a down cycle, at least temporarily. But this slide tells us where we've put our money and where it goes. The first item, the DIT Equity Fund, that's what it says. It's in equities. And it's a diverse fund with all sorts of different categories that the DIT, or actually TIAA, is the company that manages this. And they have a multitude of different funds which they put it into. And that goes to the DIT fixed income as well. And they've both done fairly well. I mean, the income fund is always going to be a lot less usually than the equity fund. Then we have some money sitting in the Vanguard and Merrill Lynch collateralized account, and that's in two pieces. You can see that it's Vanguard short-term ETF for $34,536, plus the $29,825, and that is collateralizing the $91,000 that Eleanor brought up before. And then we also have a Merrill Lynch account, which is primarily only cash, and that we use to fund whatever Dave might need during the year. And we basically sell some of the DIT and put it into that fund, or that cash account at Merrill Lynch, which he can write checks off of. And it makes it a little bit easier to fund it that way. We get the funds as soon as they sell something, we get it the next day. And that we are up to $5,309,000, which is really a tremendous amount of money that we've really built up over the years. And I can remember going back into the early 90s where we had $400,000 roughly, and through Virginia Diamond and a few other contributors, plus growth in the market, we've really come up to this point. Can you go to the next slide? And it's pretty small, but you can see it's on page 21 of your booklet. This is a 4-year synopsis of what has happened to the fund. And for this year, if you follow below the $5,309,000 current ending period, we have cash outflows of $200,150, and then cash inflows of $200,000. That's just a transfer. And we also had bequests of $454,000, which came in this year. We haven't had that in quite a while. It went directly into the endowment. But looking at the growth itself, the annual performance is 15.4% versus last year of 10.3 and the year before of 19.4. And we've been doing very well against our benchmark. The benchmark, excuse me, for 1 year is 13.6% versus the 15.3. Prior years we haven't done as well, but that's a combination of things that have happened, and it fluctuates dramatically during the year depending upon the market fluctuation. But overall, we've really done quite well, and sustained. Now we're sustaining a little bit of that loss, and I suspect it's based upon what I can determine about $200,000 off of this growth of last year. But we have to wait till the end of next year, or this coming year, I should say, to see what the real numbers are going to be like. Any questions that? target amount? Well, if we could break the $60,000 deficit amount, add the $60,000 to the endowment transfer, we would have to raise the value if we want to break even from that point of view. But you know, that's really a function of what our deficit or surplus is going to be during the year.
As far as having this amount of money that we sit on, we don't use.
Well,
How much do you need?
that really, there is no target that I'm aware of. We have a policy that's in place that reflects how much we have to have in equities, and no more than 75%, sorry, 5% in cash, and the rest in fixed income. That would be the target.
But I mean, is there a point at which we start to use the money?
Go ahead.
Is that we are using the money. We pull 5% of the money from the
Right.
amount each year, and that is by policy. So we are limited to the amount that comes out at 5% per year.
Right,
So the money
correct.
is definitively used. That's why it's in the budget.
Right, and that 5, yeah, the 5% is a rolling average of over 5 years, and it has, per year, it has a different percentage, like 25, 25, 20, and 5 and 20 of the various amounts. So it's definitely going to go up. Right now, you see the balances for the total of let's start with 2018, 3,000,007, and for 2019, 4,000,001, 2020 of 4,000,004, and now it's 5,000,003. So that percentage over this 4 years, and there'd be another year, 2017, that would also be taken into account for that rolling 5%. So the more money we have in the future, the higher the 5% will be, obviously.
How confident are you in the market that we are going to have a good year this year? I'm
Well,
not, but,
well, I know. Well, I listen to the prognosticators, the guys who do the investing for other people. And some people say it's not going to be a great year. Other people say it's going to be on par. And others it's going to be an up market again. So your guess is as good as mine. I think once we get through the Ukraine issue, the inflation issue, it will probably go back up from what it is right now. But I can't tell you when that's going to take place. Yeah, I would be. Okay.
You don't have to. If you have anything you want to add to it, you are entitled to give us stewardship.
Oh, stewardship.
Okay, no pressure.
So this is a bit on the spot. Do not have any prepared slides or remarks, but again, a lot of really wonderful things happened this year in terms of stewardship. Again, I don't know, Chris, do we have the summary stuff in here by any chance? So I'll just kind of speak to some of that. So Chris Wild, one of our wardens, does a fantastic job presenting a summary for a stewardship perspective and how many pledges have gone up, how many have remained flat, and how many have gone down over a year-over-year basis, as well as helping us compare from last year to this year to next year. How are we progressing as a community? So if you see in the stewardship report, I refer to a number of numbers that we see as part of that report, and maybe we can try and share with the community at some point here in the future. But one of the things that we saw that was incredible about this year of giving was year over year, we usually see the ratio of flat to growing pledges be about 2 to 1 in the favor of flat to growing. This year that flipped. This year was over 2 to 1 in terms of growing versus flat, and a very small number of folks that decreased their pledge for a number of reasons. So From the stewardship perspective this year, we asked for folks to open their hearts and wallets and looking at what we've been able to do in terms of our income versus budget, our budgetary income versus expenses. We were 130 in the red last year. This year we're looking at 60, and as John had mentioned, a number of wonderful new pledges have come in to close that gap even further. So I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for everything everyone has done to open your heart, open your bank accounts in a time that's been challenging for everybody. Because again, and you've heard me say it and heard others say it many, many times, grace is amazing, but we can't be amazing without your help. So thank you again for everyone's generosity and support during this time, and I will give my nickel back here.
You've been such careful listeners for almost an hour, but we do have time before we adjourn for any questions that you would have for me or for the wardens or our finance team before we call it a day and go eat guacamole and watch the football and the halftime show, which is going to be awesome. No questions. Oh, we have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Oh, a third, a fifth, a sixth. All right, but we're going to adjourn, and as we adjourn, let's stand for prayer. The Lord be with you. And also with you. Let us pray. Remembering your generosity, your compassion, and your mercy, O God, we give thanks for this place, for the people who have gone before us, for those who are with us now, and for those who will come after us, all of us held together in you. Be with all of our members this day, wherever they are. Surround them with your never-failing care. And give us a vision for your future for all of us. And as our Savior Christ has taught us, we are bold to say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Thank you. We are adjourned. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.